we're back. Welcome back to the Weekly Roundup. This is the place where we unpack what's been going on in the yoga, boutique fitness, wellness, we don't know what the hell you call it, studio world is what I would call it. And what we've been experiencing as coaches over the last week. I'm here with Coach Carol. Maybe we have another coach jumping on. You get the special double sauce today only with Carol and I. We were talking before we jumped on, Carol, about some nerdy stuff, old school business 101, first year of college business stuff. The good old org chart. It's been coming up a lot for me too. What's been happening with you?
Yeah, I think it's just that time of year that things are maybe a little bit of a calmer time at the studios. So it's a time to reevaluate and maybe make some changes to the organization, or like it's time to hire and prepare for the boom in the fall, that kind of thing. And so a lot of my clients have been even just looking at it because I feel like as a studio owner, 9 times out of 10, no one even has an org chart. We're just kind of
Yeah.
like flying by the seat of our pants anyway. And so many times the studio owner is also in every single seat. And the way we like to think, we like to think
Totally.
about the org chart is like, is this as a seat, not necessarily as a person. There is a role. The seat has KPIs associated with it, tasks associated with it. So it's, I think, really eye-opening and helpful. I mean, every studio owner I've done this with in the last several weeks is like, this is so helpful. And I think the main reason is you can start to put tasks to seats and recognize like how do we create a seat where maybe I just want to offload something, and so I can pull what I don't want to do as a studio owner anymore into a seat, and then know exactly what I'm hiring for, like what kind of skill sets am I looking for, what do I need, and also I think who do I report to? Like,
Mm,
can we
yeah.
create some kind of like this goes to workflow, which I know you wanted to also talk about, but like, there can be a lot of confusion and overlap, and that leads to um what is it? Like you're just it's a word that I'm like sorry at this point. Your inefficiency, that's the word I'm looking for. Inefficiency in the business, or like just confusion in general of who owns this thing that we want to do in the business. And so that's where a lot of clarity gets, crystallized in our org chart discussion.
I think org chart, it's like at its base, it's just the simplest way to look at it if you kind of haven't thought about it. And I would say the first studio I managed and the first two I helped build too, like nobody used that wording ever. It wasn't even a thing. So, but it's a picture of your business. That's it. And so to all of your points, like it just creates that clarity about what does it look like, who's where. I would also say that usually when a studio owner starts to build an org chart, and you were alluding to this, it's like you just, without even thinking about it, you put a seat on the chart, and then you're like, okay, but I'm sitting in the seat, the owner. I had one owner say that to me. We started doing it, and they're like, cool, like this is just me. You're just listing all the things that I do. I'm like, right, but how are we going to give them away if we don't look at them? But you make a seat, example would be marketing seat. But then you ask the question like, okay, even if you're sitting in it, what's that seat responsible for? Like, how are we measuring their success? Does it have a goal that it's focused on? And you realize in your mind there's a seat, but actually there is no seat. Like you're doing some marketing is not the same as there's a defined marketing seat that has activity happening in it. So I think the advantage is also that it like really highlights where there's literal gaps in your organization where nothing is really happening. Maybe in a reactive band-aid it way you're doing something. But you immediately become hyper aware of like, oh, like there's just nothing going on over here at all. And then you can build it. That's what you can build towards.
Well, and I've in my bigger studios that I've been working on that already have a lot of people. I think what they're also finding is it's kind of fun to say this is where we're at, but this is where we want to go. And so they've already, one particular studio I'm thinking of, like they want to hire somebody to be really and truly a teacher, lead teacher plus like this person is really good. They have a person in mind already, which is kind of interesting too, but like we already know we want to put this person in several seats where they're already
Mm,
doing a great job coordinating workshops and retreats. So we already have one person that can do like three different seats in that business. And so we can see where it's going to take pressure off the studio owners who are already doing those things. So it's kind of yeah, it's just a snapshot. And I think the fun thing and what I tell the studio owners too is like, you get to build this however you want. There's, of course we want some rules in place, but you have fluidity with this, you have creativity, you can do what works for your business. And yeah, so there aren't you can just build what you want. How do you want it? What seat do you want to be in? What seats do you not want to be in?
yeah,
That's a big one. Like, what do you not want to do anymore? How do we create that role and
right.
get someone else to do it?
It makes me think of, well, a couple things, but like a quick thought is just maybe you don't want to be the CEO or the COO. Like you don't want to be at the top of the chart. You want to be like part of the vision or whatever, but like you want to actually just be kind of over here. It's a funny thought. We never think about the idea of building a business where then like you take yourself out of the running the business part. Like you eventually think that, but like if you do the chart, then you see you're like, wait, I'm up here. Like I don't want to even be in that seat. And so it just gives you clarity of where you would maybe want to be, and that can help you in a parallel reality, like set a target for your business. Okay, in 5 years from now I will remove myself from the CEO seat, someone else will have to sit there, and then that gives you a lot of direction. You're like, what would have to be in place for me to be able to hire and plug someone into that seat that isn't just like a unicorn person that I have to pay 500,000 a year, like, and could do just as good a better job than me, you know? um I think the other detail
Yeah.
here is when you start to define it in this way and it gets a little bit more granular, you avoid a really common symptom that we talk about, I know, Carol, all the time, which is like a lot of studios, you open your studio and it's kind of just you, then you have a couple teachers, maybe you throw a front desk in there, and then but you're still handling 90% of all of the administrative everything. And so that's exhausting. And you get to this place where you might panic a bit. Like, this is a common thing that happens. Not panic like complete implosion, but you panic higher. Then you're like, oh, Carol's great. She helped me do this and this and this. And those are like three or four variety of things and sort of administrative. So then I just hire you on and I give you the title manager.
I know exactly where you're going with that. Yes.
Yeah. And then so like you've got this manager, and then your coach comes in and is like, cool, what does the manager manage? And you're like, stuff. And so I guess the point, and often there's tension then. You're like, well, I've got this manager, Carol, and it was really great for a while, but then now she kind of sucks over here. And now we're not getting along and we used to be friends. I would say that the majority of that comes directly from the lack of clarity on the role, the seat, even to the point that very often the title manager is wrong. Like that seat doesn't actually exist in the business because the hypothetical Carol here isn't actually managing anything. They're like,
Right.
they're the administrative head, or they're the salesperson, or they're actually your executive assistant.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what you're saying. It's like everything that I don't want to do as a studio owner, now I'm just like, I'll just give that to this person. I'll give that. And that person may not have the full skill set to do all those things. And that's where the tension kind of comes into, or
Yeah.
they're not, really good at one thing. They were great at the other, just like you were saying. And so yeah, that is totally. And so what we find when we do the org chart is like that person's kind of doing a little bit of this seat and a little bit of that seat and a little bit of this, and they're all over the place and potentially underutilized, and getting paid some kind of salary because they have this title
Yeah.
of manager. But like you said, they're not really managing anything. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. And well, no, I agree. And it's not to say that they're not doing a good job helping the business, or that they haven't moved you forward necessarily. Sometimes we see it where, and I've actually seen this case, maybe not an equal number of times, but quite a few times as well, where someone ends up getting this title of manager. It's not clear. You've gotten to this point where now there's a bit of tension because you're starting to look at your business through a new lens, which is more around performance. And then you're like, well, what's the ROI on this manager that I'm paying $3,000 or $3,500 a month salary plus bonuses, but the bonuses aren't off performance. They're just like any sales. And so all of a sudden you start to look at them as an expense. And to me, that's the indicator that something's fucked up with your staffing. Is as soon as you look at a person in your business and your brain goes, that person, Josh, is an expense to me, not an investment, not a solution, not an amplifier, something's wrong. And it might be the person, that's possible, but it's equally, if not more likely, that it's more like the clarity of what they're supposed to do and how you're measuring that, and then like getting them and you optimizing them to that performance. And so this person that you title manager, the sort of equally likely scenario is they do in fact descend to being the sort of operational person. They are taking things off of you, but they're not happy. And it's for the same reason. We forget that, like, as the owner, you were saying earlier, there's a list of things you're like, I don't ever want to do this again. And we're so desperate to get rid of it. I've got this manager, I just dump it on them. And I never actually ask the question, not even to them, but to myself, like, maybe they fucking hate this too. And then I'm wondering why they suck at it. It's because they cringe every time they've got to do it. That's not the right person to be doing that task. So, yeah, I think that it goes the other way around too, that like you don't need people to be like to be love every task they do in your business. If you ask a yoga teacher, like, do you just love cleaning the mirrors after class? Most of them would be like, well, if I didn't have to do that, I would just not do it. So, but you do have to, so too bad. So there's some acceptance, but just for the higher level staff, the more you can angle them to that like area of genius or like high competence, then the more impact they'll have, the happier they'll be, the more loyalty you get. Like everything starts to grow off of that. So it is also a consideration looking at it that way, I would say.
Yeah. We've definitely found like areas where we know that person is sitting in the seat and we have expectations, but they're not living up to them. So it's like maybe that person isn't the right person for that
Yeah.
seat. We want to keep them, but we move them here. And yeah, there was something else and I already like left my brain. I gotta, sorry, it's just that, yeah, that time.
It's end of the week. We've
End
been
of the I
we've been
know we're
coaching our butts off.
grinding.
Yeah. Yeah. For those of you thinking
Um,
about becoming a coach in the future, we do have a coaches training program behind the scenes, and that is expanding. So when you're ready, come talk to us. But I would just say the thing that is surprising as a coach, because we have a couple coaches who are they have tons of experience in the studio world and working, but not specifically in coaching. And they've both expressed the same thing where it's like, man, like all I did was these 3 or 4 things this week with clients and my brain's like fried. And we're like, yeah, in the beginning, your brain has to like catch up to, it's just a lot.
yeah, yeah,
By the
yeah.
time we get to the roundup, you're a little, can be a little fried. Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, I would say, what I was thinking, Carol, as you were forgetting what you were going to say, is we talk, and you guys, anyone watching is like, you've heard this before. There's sort of two of these like ladders that exist in a business just inherently. One is there's the task level position, there's a manager level position, there's a leadership level position, there's a visionary level position. Knowing where someone is relative to the seat they're in, that's also super clarifying. Sometimes you've created a seat, you put me in it, and you say, I'm responsible for like the whole whatever the thing is. So that's a leadership level seat. But my skill set is not at that level. My brain for that type of work is not at that level. I might be an excellent task doer or manager of a system and just not have the vision and the building know-how and the whatever, the problem solving skills specific to that seat to be at a leadership level. So you think I suck, but it's literally because you've kind of pointed me at the wrong thing. If you were to just give me the plan and say, Josh, you're in charge of social media, but you're the social media manager, which means you are not responsible for doing all of the vision for what we're trying to do, the strategy we're going to implement, the rules to abide by, the system of how it works. You don't have to invent all that. You can be part of the discussion in the invention of it. And I welcome your creativity, but your job is to implement on what we trickle down to you and then maintain it flawlessly. And so sometimes someone suddenly like skyrockets in what you would judge them on for performance when you reposition where they are in that hierarchy, because you realize like the social media person who maybe came to you and is like, I'll do your social media for $500 a month. And you're like, great. What they really meant is like, I like posting reels on Instagram if you already have the stuff and I get to edit it myself on my phone on CapCut. That person is not prepared to just manage your business's entire social media. That's a different thing. And so should you use them in that branch? Absolutely. Just not at the like, here, have the whole thing level, you know?
Mhm. I remember what I was going to say. And it was once we started to do this with a couple of people also, it's like you're now tuned into what you need. And right away, I've had studio owners be like, oh my gosh, the next week, so and so said that they have this skill set that would be perfectly aligned with this role that we were looking for. And they didn't even
Yeah.
know that they needed it. But then it's like once you're attuned to it, it's like the universe starts to, do that thing where it moves the right people into place. So I
Hell
think
yeah.
that's also a really cool thing that starts to happen.
I've experienced what you're describing, I don't know, 87,450 times in my businesses, like throughout my business career, you know? Um, Most recently, Coach Maria, who's now ascending to coach, she I said to Mara in a conversation, I'm like, okay, like I'm taking all of our free coaching calls currently at the moment I was. I don't like my schedule, my calendar is limiting for people to be able to book them. So we have more leads than bookable time, and that's a problem. And then, we really want to be able to help those people and see if they're a good fit for joining a coaching program or something too. I need someone to be in basically like a free coaching call sales seat. And there's other activities associated with that. The fucking next day, Maria emailed me and was like, hey, I've been a beer salesperson for 2 years and worked in HR, and I'm a yoga teacher, and I manage this studio, and I did this other stuff. Do you need someone else on your team? I don't even know what. And I was like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. it just
It's so
happens.
true. I know. It's
Yeah.
really cool,
Yeah.
actually.
It makes me think of the red car theory. We've done some videos we talked about before where like you don't see red cars on the road until someone for some reason says like something about a red car, or you start looking at buying a red car, or you do buy a red car. Then all of a sudden you're like, shit, red car, red car, red car. And you see them. And it's the idea that like our brain is so good at conserving caloric burn, conserving energy, that it filters things out from our frontal cortex so that you like literally do not consciously see, you lack the awareness on all sorts of stuff all the time because it would be too much information. Even just in a single, like one element of visual, what you see, you just don't see things because your brain's like, nah, like that. It's not that you don't see it, it's that your brain just doesn't tell you that you see it until you have awareness on it, and then you do see it. And so the parallel to this, like the universe, this law of attraction element part is also once you know what you're looking for, then you will see it when it actually like comes in front of you. The
Mhm.
reason I bring that up is to me, this is that statement, I make my own luck, which I think is a stupid statement, but I think that's in fact where that comes from. It's the idea that if you think someone is lucky, I don't think that anyone has more or less luck than someone else. Now, there's certainly luck involved in life, in my opinion. But I think that the person who seems really lucky, there are factors that create luck, opportunities. But the bigger, more important thing is when a lucky opportunity presents itself, they identify it and then they do it. And so, even the simplest thing, I need to hire a person who's really good at this. If you don't have clarity on what that is, then the person might be there and like you just won't notice it. You can't capitalize on it. We see that with front desk staff all the time. You're like, well, I hired this front desk because it was like the daughter of one of the teachers. And we're like, okay, but like, what did you want them to do at the front desk? And they're like, well, sign the class in, full towels. They go to college, so I thought this would be a good college after school job and they can do a little homework. And then you go look at the front desk person and they don't engage clients. They just check in on the computer. They fold some towels. They literally are being paid to do their own homework. And now you're like, well, that doesn't seem right. And we're like, yeah, but that's what you hired for. Like
Yeah.
accidentally, because you weren't looking for, I need a salesperson. And so then your next hire is exponentially better, not because they're a better person, but because you're better at identifying what you need.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I don't know. I was just
Oh,
thinking like the next thing is, how do we, once we do hire that person, how do we make them, how do we ensure that they're doing the tasks on their list? Like because that
yeah.
sometimes we've talked about this a little bit too, like you have this person and I will say like, do you have a checklist? I'll ask the studio owner and that's like real loose. It's real,
Yeah.
there's nothing concrete. They're kind of halfway doing the thing. And it's really interesting to see the reluctance sometimes of like making just a simple checklist for your staff to make sure that they do
Yeah.
all the things. I don't know. I it's kind of mind-blowing sometimes, but super simple things will really enhance the output of your team.
Right. I made a video not that long ago when it's in editing. I don't know if it's out or not, talking about this because one of the things that was coming up at the time that inspired me to make it is the fear of micromanagement.
Mm,
Like part of being a studio owner is you like whether you would describe it like this, my experience in the industry, both personally and then also through the people I've worked with and you, Carol, other coaches, etc., is like the unnamed thing when we say like community is one of the strongest parts of the studio, the unnamed thing is one of my objectives in owning this type of business is the human connective like-minded health environment, spiritual environment, friendshipy work environment thing. Like that's what I wanted as a lifestyle component of the work that I do. Because if it was just money or and like yes, impact to other people's lives, but like that's also a part of it. If it was just money, like just fucking, I don't know, nowadays sell ebooks on Amazon or whatever, there's all sorts of things you can do. But the point being, because of that, there's this unwritten, unconscious, maybe for some owners in the beginning, like nervousness around being a bad boss, which is actually a positive thing, not from a fear standpoint, but in the like an awareness. Like, I don't want to have my work environment be shitty. I don't want Carol to feel like I'm micromanaging everything and I'm always on her ass, and just like, because I had a boss like that when I was younger and that sucked. But what comes with that then is this sort of stuff. Then I start to resist things like telling my team with clarity what the expectation of their performance is, giving them a checklist to follow on shift, because I feel like, oh, well, they're going to feel like I'm micromanaging them. But that's not micromanagement. That's clarity. That's leadership. That's a system so that they don't screw it up, so that you can have a minimum bar of performance set in. That's actually helpful. It's alleviating for your team. And so I think psychologically, there's a little shift in that stuff that has to happen sometimes too.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. For your team, they don't want to just fly blind. And, that
No.
that the clarity, micromanaging would be like, you know, they have the checklist and then there's, still somebody over their shoulder, like watching everything they do. But just having the checklist itself or being clear on what their expectations are and what they need to do every shift is not, that actually should make them feel more secure and, yeah, like feel like they're accomplishing what they should do. I feel like that would make them, know the expectations and feel good about it. It was interesting. I just had a conversation this morning about an owner that was worried that her, like, one of the teachers, I think, introduced something in the class that she wasn't ready for. It was kind of like she felt like it should have been run through her first. And she said,
Mm.
was it my ego? Like, because I'm the owner and I want to make sure that this is like, is it my ego that's doing this or what? And I said, no, that's your product. And you have full control over what your product looks
Yeah.
like. And so, but I can appreciate that. We talked about this last week as a studio owner, being a good leader and being a better studio owner, knowing yourself and having the moment of like, step back. Am I doing this? Am I reacting in a way that is coming from ego or not is huge. And so we had that discussion, which was kind of funny. I'm like, we just talked about this last week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it all kind of ties together.
Yeah. It's that self-awareness. I mean, you couldn't possibly invent a better testing ground for your deeper personal trauma response, emotional, brain wiring, philosophical, yoga, dharma, karmic path work than fucking opening a studio. It will all
Oh my
come
God.
up. There is
So,
like,
so
I
true.
think owning a business like a studio, getting married, having kids, those are the three things that you will not escape yourself doing those. It will punch you in the fucking face. And so that's the like, good for you. How lucky you are to get to know yourself better. But it's those little things where, yeah, you've got to gut check and be like, wait a minute, like, I know that this is rubbing me wrong, but why is it just me? No, wait, I own a business. I'm a $500,000 in debt. This is a change to the core product that we offer without me knowing or my approval. Okay, we're gonna have a
Yeah.
conversation about
Yeah.
it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not about right or wrong. It's just like that doesn't make sense objectively. Yeah, totally. I think one of the things with the idea of like, okay, the SOPs and putting a checklist in place, for example, the existence of this stuff is a necessity. And for most studios that we talk to, it's not really in place fully. And so it's like you need the foundational stuff of what is the system, what is the checklist. That does first have to exist. But the existence of it doesn't make it happen. And so normally people would describe what happens next as then you have to train them on it, which is true. But training is just setting the bar. It's just saying, like, okay, here's this checklist. Now I've trained you on the checklist. Now this expectation is in place. That's the building part. The maintenance part is a separate thing. And so I think one of the details that gets missed, and the really specific example would be like, if you wrote a really dope vision and mission statement and core values, and you're like, these, you spent a weekend, you did a workshop, you're like, these are beautifully written. I'm going to paint them on the wall of the studio. They're implemented in my business. And then you never talk about them, look at them, use them ever again. Are they implemented into the business, like practically? And so the example there is like, every time you have a team meeting, you got to read your vision, mission, core values. Every time you onboard somebody, it's got to be in the contract, and you've got to talk through it, and you got to get them to do a writing assignment of like, what do these mean to you? Every time you're making a decision on, let's add this product, does it fit this stuff? Like every single time it has to actually be applied. Same thing, the checklist example, just putting a checklist at the front desk isn't the solution. That's the tool to the solution, which is someone should have a checklist so that, because humans are going to human, we don't miss anything. Like that's it. How do you enforce on that without being there looking over their shoulder all the time? This is the culminating point, is like the system itself should be the enforcer. And then if that doesn't work, that's when a manager or you step in, because now it's a totally different conversation. If I follow your checklist on my shift, and that's not just one random page that I look at, I literally have to like check something off or sign it or whatever, or I do an end of shift report, which sounds annoying, but it could be like 3 or 4 questions. And that auto sends to the manager. You don't have to check it every day, but like once a quarter during a review, we look at it and we're like, hang on a second, Carol, like 30% of the time we didn't even get your end of shift report. What gives? Different conversation now. Mm-hmm. And so, because the insinuation is, it's clear to do this, there's a checklist, there's a report that has to go in that I'm also checking on and holding you accountable to. So if you aren't doing that stuff, or a simple example, I get your report from yesterday, and then I come into the studio this morning and the place is disheveled, but you checked off that it's clean. Totally different conversation now, right? Wait, how does this get checked off and get missed if this was like, that doesn't seem possible. And so it's more empowered because you eliminate the bullshit story, excuses, whatever that can happen, and you just start talking about straight performance of things, basically.
Yeah. That's my I guess.
Yeah, I think the major point is the system itself should enforce, or should do whatever, 70-80% of the enforcement. Like that, when we talk about a practical application of an SOP, that's the question to ask. Does this SOP, like, am I implementing it in a way where without my input, it would be right in the face of the person using it in a way that they would have to consciously choose to not do something? That's the thing to try to answer, which is not always perfect. That can be as simple as they got to carry a clipboard around and whatever, but that would be the question to ask. I think going back to the org chart thing, if the SOP or whatever's in the middle, and then there's this like practical application enforcement, in front of it is, before I even follow the checklist, like, do I have clarity on what I'm supposed to be doing? Macro viewpoint, the org chart viewpoint. Mm-hmm. What are my responsibilities? How will you measure my success? Whatever. And then is that reflected in the contract that I have with you? Like, is that crystal clear? And I don't know, you can tell your recent story, but like very often we uncover, I'm asking someone to do something in the studio, nothing about it is covered in the contract at all. And then I'm like, now what? What do we do?
Yeah, I mean, this is going a little off, but like a recent incident was, it goes back to, we've talked about this before. Do you have something in your contract about dating students and, fraternizing outside the studio? And it was a situation that really, it took up a lot of the studio owner's bandwidth while they were on a family vacation, and we had to talk through like what are the steps and everything. And like, long story short, I was like, do you have anything in your employee contract that talks about this? And the answer was no. And so the thought was like, on the next round of re-upping the contract, we'll go ahead and put that in. But it's like, you could actually add that anytime. So you could have this,
Yeah.
you could have like an emergency addition
Yeah.
to your contract right away. I think the studio owner was hesitant to do that because then it would be very clear that this incident prompted that. But at the same time, does it matter? I don't know if it matters. Like that's something that we need to make sure is nipped in the bud right away. We don't want this to happen again. I mean, I know Terry's really big on like, no, no, no. I will say, I kind of was like, look, if you fall in love with somebody, I can't stop you. This is your life and you two are meant to be together. It's that gray area where like one time we had a desk person to a male client. He came in for his first time and she like was saying how she thought he was so attractive, whatever. After the class, she ran out in the parking lot and said, I never do this, but here's my number. And we were like, no, you can't do that. And he never came back. And,
Yeah.
it's just that recipe for you're gonna lose
Yeah.
somebody, I think,
Yeah.
in the divorce in the end. So it's
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway.
Well, that would break if that studio, or in the scenario that you guys had, like if you have in your core values some version of inclusivity or whatever, that would break that core value. That's not inclusive because you're actually creating a high tension environment where now that person might be uncomfortable to come because they have to be concerned with the interaction with you. And like if we flip this story the other way and we talk about a guy at the desk with a woman, immediately everyone identifies this as like, no, that's a problem. If it flips the other way, it seems a little more, I don't know, not accepted. It's different. The point would be that's not how you want to approach it, is like your feeling. You want it to be clear in an agreement setting so that that happens. But what I was, with my studios too, same thing. It was like, I can actually control who you date. Like if you just totally fucking fall in love with someone and it's cool, like I'm not gonna squash that. That seems bad tension between us. On the other hand, there's no bullshit in this studio. There's no gossip in this studio. There's zero. There's no like, if someone starts to become nervous to come here as a direct result of your advances or vice versa, like that's not appropriate for the position that you're in. You're in a position of authority and trust immediately. And so even if it's not that person, like you and I get flirty and you're okay with it, but this other person isn't, and then they feel uncomfortable and it changes the feeling of the whole business. That's not what we're doing here. And so that's where we were really clear that like not don't ever approach someone in the studio, don't accept it in advance in the studio. If outside of the studio on your own accord, you happen to run into someone, sparks fly, and it's like actually serious, cool. And also tell me, like come to us and just be clear about what's happening. Not because I need to know about or control your dating life, but because I'm going to protect my business at all costs, period. So, and that, I think I've told the story before, that actually, in a few times, really, like we were very clear on this. It made it really easy. There were a few scenarios where that line was not crossed, but like someone tried to walk the line. And it was easy to be like, here's where it's written. Here's what we talked on. Here's the understanding. You tell me, where are we on this spectrum? And every time they're like, yeah, I get it. Done. We never had to do anything weird ever because it was clear. So
Did you have any instructors dating instructors?
yeah, the highest tension scenario I had was an instructor we had that I funded them to go to teacher training. Like gave them the loan for it because I didn't have it. And two teacher trainings actually, and mentored them for 3 years and like promoted the shit out of them in our environment. Like this was like one of our like known entity, serious, identified as a studio instructor. Started dating an instructor at another, like he taught at a few places in town, but the two other places that would have been what I would consider if I was worried about a competitor, they would have been at. The bigger thing was both of them talk shit on us all the time. So I really didn't respect how they did business. And so they started dating, fine, and it fit all the criteria. They met like farming together or something. So it was fine. But then she was like, actually, someone else said, "Oh, they're gonna do like this couples yoga class together at this other place." And before I got the phone call into her, she phoned me. So she must have known that it got out.
Yeah.
She totally did the right thing. She handled it right. She's like, "Hey, this is happening. This is why. Here's my thought with it. Like this relationship, this job, whatever is more important to me." And it was the one time it was high tension because she didn't ask, but she was looking for me to let her off the hook, and I didn't. And I know that she didn't love that, but I had to. I was like, dude, we've spent 5 years developing you. You are like, it doesn't feel right to me for you to suddenly be at this other place where someone can see you and identify you as someone with us over there. This muddies the water. I can't stop you from doing this. But if you, and this is not like an ultimatum, but just like, if this happens, I won't have you on the schedule next month. This doesn't fit. I feel like we've been clear about it up front. Your decision. So then she didn't do it. And I felt kind of bad, but I was like, if we weren't so clear about it, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, to this point though, too, with the contract thing, you sort of mentioned this already. The other thing that's funny is this like thought that you can't update an agreement. You know, sometimes in coaching this happens. We're like, okay, well, like this is not in the agreement. Really, they're not even in this role. It should be titled this. They move here on the org chart. Like, let's change all that. And they're like, oh, but you know, Carol already signed the contract that says this. We're like, yeah. And does it say like you can't ever change this contract ever? Like, I'm sure it has a parameter, written notice, whatever for changes, but there's a real reluctance to actually take the final step of like implementation. Or you were saying you get the like, we'll do it next year when we update the contracts. And you're like, but this is like a thing today.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure what that is, but I would just say out loud that like, as an owner of a business, it's your prerogative to change things at any point in time. You have to understand the repercussions of that action, but like, you can do it.
For sure. Yeah, this is like you like to say, this is you're the game creator.
Yeah.
It's like so you get to make the rules and the game board and contracts part of it.
And someone might choose not to play the game. I think that's part of the, maybe a component of the fear is like,
Yeah.
if you change the rules of the game in the wrong way or at the wrong time or whatever, then the risk is someone's like, I don't want to play this game anymore.
Mhm.
But so if you're making a change, I think you have to accept that. Like you have to be prepared that that's a possible outcome. And you have to decide like, is this rule change more important than keeping this person happy? And that can be tricky to discern sometimes. Um, what was I going to say? Oh, the going back to the story that you were telling, Carol, of like, oh, well, I don't want to change it now because it'll be obvious that this event was what triggered this change. This might just be a personal style thing, but like for me, that would be why I would do it then. I would literally say that. This happened. Like, now I'm throwing anyone under the bus. That in light of XYZ scenario, like, I think that's being transparent as a business owner, not gossipy, not throw someone under the bus. So the communication nuance has to be there. But like, this scenario happened, it hasn't happened before. And what it's highlighted is we have a gap in our agreement for expectations. Therefore, here's the updated version of it across the board right now. Like, to me, that's actually maybe more empowering and professional for your team to see that you're like, okay, I'm not just randomly doing some shit. Like, this is because of a lived experience. And we realize, like, let's be better as a team. Here's how we do that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're course correcting on the fly.
Yeah,
So,
totally. Cool. The one other thing that spins off of this has been coming up on my calls a lot. It kind of ties into this, like, build the system as the and part of the enforcement component, is this idea that right now we're at a moment in time where work itself, like, workflow is the catchphrase that's being used mostly now, which is interesting because whatever, we got to find a new word to describe something we've been doing forever. But like, your personal workflow, your team's workflow, whatever, that's what's like actively changing. How work looks, how you work, the flow at which you do it, expectations associated, etc., is like actually changing culturally across the world. And it's kind of an exciting time because of that, in my mind. It just can feel a little like discombobulating. And so the reason I bring it into the conversation is the other benefit to everything we're describing here is these are the like vision level, like kind of guardrails, clarifying agents, etc., for the business. And if they're in place, then how you work to make them happen can be flexible. That's okay. If they're not in place, you'll feel like, oh, but now we do something like this, or we used to use this program and now we got to switch to that. And you're kind of in this perpetual state of like just reacting to whatever the thing is. And it can be hard to, I don't know, it can be hard to really like feel grounded, I suppose, would be the way I describe it.
yeah, it's kind of like we get really, I mean, I don't know, this was me. Once I got something in place, I wanted to do the old set it and forget it.
Yeah.
I don't want to rock the boat, or what I hear a lot of times is like another app to train my team on. And
Yeah.
but if that tool is like taking you into ease and helps with that like insurance of these tasks being done or whatever it is, like helping your workflow, isn't it worth it? I don't know. It's hard to know. I think it's a scary thing sometimes for a studio owner to take the leap. Um, so yeah, I get it, but listen to your coach.
Your coach will be a fresh eyes for you.
Yeah.
Well, actually, to me, that also brings up the summit. Like, a huge component, and any of those listening or watching who have been to the summit can attest to this. The summit has formulated over the years, but its core purpose right now is, we call it like the annual visionary, It's to set up what you're doing for the next year. But on the deeper level on the ground, what are you doing? It's this conversation. You're going to look at things and be like, I have this problem that I need to fix, or I have this goal that I want to achieve. Here's the strategy of how I'm going to do that. But then, can I do it? Like, do I have the people to do it? Do I have the systems to do it? Do I have the tech to do it? Does my existing tech allow for this? And so that element that you're talking about of the set it and forget it, and whether or not to make a shift or whatever, does get much clearer, because you might realize, okay, my strategy for whatever, my intro pipeline is, I got to automatically send these emails at this time based off of these purchase behaviors. is that already happening? Does my system already do that? Yes. So who gives a shit if there's a better version of it? Like, unless it's so much cheaper and so much better in some way that it's going to solve a new problem for you, it's just a distraction. Then you should set it and forget it. Like, it's not doing anything for you. On the other hand, if it's crystal clear that like this is the thing you need to accomplish in your system, cannot do that. It is the limiting factor. Different conversation. Then like, yeah, it might be a new app for people to learn, but it's going to let you do these 10 things that you already know are going to very likely help you, your team, your business, whatever.
And then
Then
you're at the summit with studio owners and you can bounce ideas. Oh, have you used this before? Has it worked
yes,
for you? You know, it's like you get immediate feedback and input from, 20 other people. Like if you want, you don't have to go to everybody, but there's a lot of you know, hive mind happening there that's really, really powerful.
I remember in 2019, but actually before that, even 2018, it was when BrandBot originally came out in 2016. And at first, it was shit. Like, it really didn't, the idea was good, but it didn't functionally do things very well. And then so they kind of like relaunched it in 2018. And then it was suddenly their vision of what it was supposed to do and what it was being sold on, it like actually could do that. And so overnight, it like went from, in our group, 2 or 3 people using it to like 150, like that. And I remember being having a conversation in our private community at that point, and then also even still at the summit the year after in 2019, and a couple people not being on it. And it was almost comical at that point in our group that like we're like, how could you not be using Brett? Like, you can't do anything without this, is how it felt. And it wasn't to belittle anyone, but I think for the owners who didn't know about it, hadn't adopted it, whatever, it was a good example in a super intense way of just complete confirmation of who gives a shit if it's 3 times what you're paying for constant contact. It's not even the same. It's not just an email sender. Your business, in fact, needs this. Do it. Like, it was just, and that wasn't us. We didn't have anything with BrandBot. It was just the best platform at the time. It's not anymore. And so, yeah, I remember a few people like they hadn't even left the summit and they had already signed up and started building
Yeah.
things. So like, well, this is it.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, that confirmation, the tried and tested thing through the community can be really powerful for just simplicity, just clarity of like, this is clearly the thing, you know?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's it for today. I don't know.
That's good.
My direct advice, look at anytime like you have tension with a person, or a system doesn't seem like it's happening, or an outcome isn't taking place, or there's a recurring problem across the team, I would ask, who's responsible for this? That's your org chart question. How would we measure if it was successful so we can actually track it? Do we have an SOP that says how to do this? And does that SOP itself, like, is it actually something that it doesn't just exist in a binder or in a Google Drive folder? It's like, it's actually practically useful. It enforces itself. And sometimes what you identify is you've got the right idea, you've got the right strategy, you even got the right details of it. It's just missing these little components or one of them. And it's like, that's the linchpin. As soon as you get it, you're kind of good. Then it suddenly does what you think it's supposed to do.
Right on.
Cool. We have 3 more spots in the primary area of the Yoga Business Summit. If you're wondering, is this for you? You can send a comment here, let us know, and we're very happy to even jump on a call and discuss it. We'll give it to you straight. We think that you're not a fit for the summit. It's going to be a waste of your time and money. It's not going to literally skyrocket or double your business in 2026. We'll just tell you, like, this isn't, you're not ready for this, or it's not for you, or you're working on a different thing. So if you're not sure, you're sitting on the fence, reach out. If you're not sure, but you actually just know, you're like, I need to get my shit together for the next year, then what are you doing? let's get you going here. Cool.
Yes.
All right, that's a wrap on this week's weekly roundup. You can tune in every Friday right here on Facebook, or subscribe to Studio Cult TV on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you are listening from. We will see you next week.